Hello, Jerry Beal, and to remind you that my video portion doesn't work. The audio does, and you don't want to be sitting there staring at me anyway, so just sit back and listen to this. I'm going to show you and demonstrate to you and prove to you. I'm proving this to, God damn it, please hear the word prove. I'm going to prove that traditional clinical psychology is fundamentally flawed. Now, there's people who study geology and who study the various sciences and all of that. That's all fine. But when it comes to sociology and psychology, we are screwed on planet Earth in 3 dimensions, except maybe over in the Eastern countries, in the Buddhists. They're the ones that understand these things, but we don't we don't understand it here. And America has it. The traditional clinical psychologists are fundamentally flawed. I'm not going to tell you about the problem. I'll tell you in another one about my problems, but I had a problem that I agonized over for over 30 agonizing years. And I went to, now are you ready for this? 60 sessions, 60 expensive sessions with traditional clinical psychologists, and I never got a damn bit of good in going to them to help lessen the urges that I had with that sexual addiction. Then I found A Course in Miracles. That's a non-traditional masterpiece of psychology, but it completely contradicts traditional psychology. It has a whole different way to think. T-H-I-N-K, think. It's a whole different way to think and to process our feelings and experiences. So I'm telling you now how traditional clinical psychology is fundamentally flawed, and we are in deep shit if we don't get this corrected. As it is now, humanity is stuck in a thought reversal problem. A thought reversal problem, because the main purpose of A Course in Miracles is to reverse the thinking of the world. My God, you want a big project? How's that for a project? To reverse the thinking of the world. So the thinking of the world finally starts lining up with cause and effect. That's the main purpose of A Course in Miracles, which I regard as a non-traditional psychological masterpiece, and I'll show you right now how that is. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then we'll examine them a little bit here. But I'm going to try to do this quickly because it's so hard for me to get things said in a short period of time. Okay, 30 years ago, no, about 32 years ago, I guess it is, I was in a Mormon church position to hear sinful confessions of the group of people I was a part of. One time a young lady came to me and she confessed that she had done oral sex on a 1.5, nearly 2-year-old boy that she regularly babysat, and she had done this on 3 separate occasions. Among the questions, oh, by the way, she had given him toys to play with to occupy him while she sucked his penis, and she had done this on 3 separate occasions. Among the questions I asked her was, how did the little guy react? And she said twice he didn't react at all. Now think about it. Twice he didn't react at all while she was sucking his penis. And once he squirmed a little bit, and so I stopped doing it. Well, that was around 30 years ago, 32 years ago, and now I don't know much about the young lady. I gave her a Mormon repentance program to follow, which she did follow, and that was that as far as, her and the church and myself were concerned that way. But at the time, I didn't know about A Course in Miracles, and I didn't know about what I call the psychology of personal honesty and personal responsibility, and that's what I'll tell you more about here. And so at that time, I wasn't able to really do much except do what the Mormon leaders tell us to do as far as putting her on a repentance program and that kind of thing, and I did that. And now, 30 years later, I don't know much about her, but I do know enough about the boy to know that he went and returned from his Mormon mission He was married with children, has a good career, went through school, and is as fully functioning a young man as you'll ever see around. And so the point I'm making here is that he was sexually molested, so-called molested, on 3 separate occasions, and he never even had the experience of it. I'm pausing. He was sexually molested on 3 separate occasions, and he never even had the experience of it. Okay, let's find out why he didn't have the experience of it. Epictetus told us why, and he told us in the year 101 AD, he made the statement, people's minds are not disturbed by events, but by their own judgments on events. People's minds are not disturbed by events, but by their own judgments on events. Okay? And so there you go. 600 years previous to that, there was a man named Lao Tzu who lived in China, and many people think that that was the Buddha that came over into China, Lao Tzu, but whether it was or not, he made the statement, if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. And so what I'm saying is the mind correction is what Epictetus told us. People's minds are not disturbed by events, but by their own judgments on events. And that's why the little boy, didn't have, never even had the experience of being sexually molested, and on 3 separate occasions, as because his mind wasn't disturbed by the event. But it would have been disturbed by his highly problematic interpretation about the event if he'd have been older and he'd have been fed the bullshit that events are causing experiences, and so he would be thinking just as you're thinking in terms of problematic conditions and problematic events instead of problematic interpretations about anything at all. Again, he would be thinking in terms of problematic conditions and problematic events, just like you are, instead of problematic interpretations about anything at all. And I'm talking about when the care and keeping of bodies is not the issue. So the point I make with Lao Tzu, by the way, is he says if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. So I've corrected my portion of our mind, but almost nobody else has, except maybe some strictly raised Buddhists have. And so how that falls into place is that when the care and keeping of bodies is not the issue. When I'm going through life, I've corrected my mind, so I'm going through life, and if there isn't violence, or if there isn't forcing, and if the planet isn't polluted to death, like is such a problem for us now because we're so goddamn greedy. But if it isn't about bodies, if it isn't body related, and I mean harmful body related, then whenever anybody comes along and says, look at this problem, or look at that problem, or look at this problem or that problem, I just say, well, it doesn't matter because it can't matter. And that can't matter, and this can't matter, and that can't matter, and this can't matter, and that can't matter. The point is you have to make it matter, or you have to make it not matter, because it's a matter of interpretation whether it matters or not. And anything that can be interpreted non-problematically. You see, the care and keeping of bodies can't be interpreted non-problematically, because it's a problem. It's factually a problem when somebody's body is harmed. It's a problem as a matter of fact. But as far as our mental and emotional concerns go, any problem in that area is a matter of interpretation, and so it can't matter. And that's how when you correct your mind, you go through life. This doesn't matter, that problem, you say that's a problem, that doesn't matter. Here's what A Course in Miracles says about problems and about the people, the traditionally educated clinical psychologists I'm talking about, who think in terms of problematic conditions and problematic events instead of problematic interpretations. And so they are unable to question the reality of a problem, and that's part of the reason they're fundamentally flawed. Here's what A Course in Miracles says about our clinical psychologists who have been traditionally educated, okay? And by the way, the traditionally educated clinical psychologists, they have assimilated traditional information for the purpose of passing traditional tests to get traditionally graded and sent out into a very traditional world, a world whose tradition says the world is affecting us. You know, this makes me happy, that makes me upset. Better and worse conditions and events are causing better and worse lives. It's all bullshit. And it's all a game of pretenses, but you have to think through it. So I'm going to give you this next example that helps you to think through that. A farmer who also likes to play golf arrives at a golf course just as it starts raining pretty hard. He turns to his buddy and he says, "Oh, I didn't give you the, excuse me, I need to backtrack. I'm telling you what A Course in Miracles said about problems and relative to traditional clinical psychology." Here's what it says. "The separated ones have invented many cures for what they believe to be the ills of the world. But the one thing they do not do is to question the reality of a problem. Yet its effects cannot be cured because the problem is not real. The separated ones have invented many cures for what they believe to be the ills of the world." You see, what I'm telling you, there are no ills of the world except when bodies are concerned. And if we understood it, then everything would be interpreted non-problematic after that. And that's how, when you correct your mind, the rest of your life falls into place. People's minds are not disturbed by events. That's how it falls into place. But by their own judgments on events, and so you just judge everything non-problematically after that, because, you know, things can only be what they actually are, and if they're not violent, then they can't matter. If they're not violent, and if they don't harm bodies, then they can't matter. You know, harming of bodies matters. The Earth's environment matters, but nothing else can. The mental and emotional concerns I'm talking about that we think are that have external causes are bullshit. Everything has an internal cause. You know, you're the cause of your own feelings. Nobody can give you your own feelings and your own experiences, no matter that these goddamn psychologists lie to you about that. Okay, the second one then, you know, and so what, they're unable to question the reality of a problem because we brought in this bullshit of right and wrong, good and evil, this polarizing crap that has really hurt our society. And so we say this human activity is wrong, but that one isn't. What kind of bullshit is that? You know, where is there any truth to that? Where is there any fact to that? You see what I mean? That's how clever Lucifer was when he talked Adam and Eve into that bullshit. You know, it's because he brought in interpretation, and they started using it as fact, just like you would if you said this human activity is wrong and that one isn't. And if it seems really wrong, like the boy, oh my God, he was sexually molested. Oh, that's just a terrible thing. You know, and the little boy didn't think it was wrong, and he's supposed to be the victim. He just thought it was whatever it was, and it's, you know, there's no doubt that he saw her suck his penis, but he didn't care. He just went right on playing with his toys. And as I said, I think I said that 30 years later, yeah, I told you that he's as fully functioning a young man as you'll ever see around. He doesn't remember that she sucked his penis, and so he didn't remember to be a victim. Now, if I were to remind him, which I won't, of course, only the young lady and myself ever knew anything about those three separate occurrences, and that's all whoever will, unless she decides to tell somebody, because I won't be naming names or anything. So let me give you the second example here. A farmer who also likes to play golf arrives at a golf course just as it starts raining pretty hard. He turns to his buddy and he says, "This rain is pissing me off, upsetting me." And his buddy says, "Oh, you You've forgotten something, though. His buddy says, you've forgotten that you got crops in the ground that are benefiting a lot from this good rainstorm. At that, the farmer golfer thinks for a moment, and then he says, yeah, you're right about that. I forgot about my crops in the ground soaking up this good rain. Therefore, now the rain is making me happy, where it was making me upset before. So, the rain is supposed to make him happy, and then it's supposed to, or upset, and then it's supposed to make him happy. Something's wrong, isn't it? Something is incorrect. Well, the human thought reversal problem that we're all engulfed in and unconsciously conspired in, by the way, is this in one sentence. We're dishonestly, around 95% of the population of the world is dishonestly and irresponsibly crediting and blaming the people, things, conditions, and events of our lives for what our own beliefs and interpretations about them are causing. We're dishonestly and irresponsibly crediting and blaming the things themselves for what our mental interpretations about them are causing. And so let's look at the farmer golfer. You would go right along with it. He says the rain is pissing me off, and if you ask him why, it would be obvious because they can't play golf in the rain, and he would say that. The reason it's pissing me off is because we can't play golf in the rain. And so evidently the rain is the cause of his pissed off feelings. But it's not. And would I like to bet $500? I'm a poor person, but this is where I would become rich pretty fast, betting people on this. The rain had nothing to do with him being pissed off. The rain was the subject or the symbol. It was the subject or the symbol. It had nothing to do with his feelings. And then secondly, of course, he said the rain makes me happy because it's watering my fields and my crops. And you would go along with that too. You'd say, well, that makes sense. The rain is causing him to be happy instead, when he changed his mind about the rain. Hint, 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 hint. When he changed his mind about the rain, now the rain is supposed to make him happy instead. Well, how can, one thing, one condition or one event be the cause of two completely different feeling experiences, and all within a few seconds' time, without human interpretation being involved? Because he didn't say, the way I interpreted the rain the first time, using a problematic interpretation, caused me to be pissed off and upset. He didn't say that. No, he said the rain is making me upset. The physical material rain is making me upset. That's what he said. And that's what you say all the time. And then you say, this makes me happy. Even if it's your kids, they aren't making you happy. Even if it's your kids and they're doing something cute and you're laughing and everything else. What they're doing has nothing to do with you being happy. And you need to understand that in order for you to free your mind and to correct your mind, you see. Because your kids aren't making you happy. It's your happy interpretation about them. It's your mental contribution. It's your own defining mind context about what they're saying, about what they're doing, that's making you happy. Because if it was like a 3 or 4 year old child or something doing it, and then there's a 6-month-old baby watching the same thing, the baby won't laugh. And you know that. If it's a little brother or sister and is 6 months old and they're watching them, they won't laugh, and you know that. Well, why is that? Because it's supposed to make you happy, but it's not making them happy. It's because they don't know how to bring a happy interpretation to it yet. Soon they will, but they don't have their programming yet. They're this makes me happy and that makes me upset programming. Okay, the raining event was the subject or the symbol and not the cause of this guy's feelings or experiences, even though he will continue to believe he was relating to the raining event, and yet the raining event had nothing to do with his feelings and experiences. The raining event was the subject or the symbol, yes, but it still had nothing to do with him being upset or being happy. It was something. It was what was being talked about, but it wasn't the cause. It wasn't one iota the cause of his feelings and experiences, and you need to get that. You see, he and you, and not me anymore, but he and you are relating to what things mean for us, but we think we're relating to what things are. And that's what you're doing all day long and everything else. That's why you have conflict in your life. I have conflict in my life only because I can't get anybody to listen to what I'm saying or talk over what I'm saying, and so I choose to be upset. But at least I take responsibility. I choose to use a problematic interpretation because everybody that should know about this stuff is they're all dumbasses. The traditional clinical psychologists will not talk to me about this because they know what I think they know, that I've got something here, and they don't want to deal with it. They just want to, tell me I'm wanted on the phone or something like that. And so we're relating to what things mean for us, but we think we're relating to what things are. You see, the farmer or golfer, let's break it down even more. Because you're in the mindset the farmer golfer was, and in the same mindset almost everybody is. This makes me happy and that makes me upset. That mindset, and then the extension of that mindset is, when you extend that mindset, it means that better and worse conditions and events are causing better and worse lives. Or you could say better and worse conditions and events are causing better and worse feelings, better and worse experiences, and thus better and worse lives. That's what our base foundational thinking mode is now, and that's why we can't solve any problems. It's because we are unable to question the reality of a problem. You see, the farmer proved to us that better and worse conditions and events are not causing better and worse feelings or better and worse experiences. And he also proved the true cause and effect of human feelings and experiences, that is, better and worse interpretations about the conditions and events is what's really causing better and worse feelings, better and worse experiences, and thus better and worse lives. And you see, we get our interpretations from our belief systems, and yet our main belief system is the world is affecting me. I am my body, the world is affecting me, therefore I'll go here, do this, that, and the other, manipulate this way, manipulate that way, because the world is affecting me, I am my body, therefore, the confusion about I am my body is the conditions and events often affect bodies, but they do not affect us. We are the user of the body. We're not human flesh. Hello. See, so think about it. The worst condition, better and worse conditions and events are not causing better and worse lives. But we believe they are, and our whole society is based on it. That's where we come up with the rich, if they have to pay too many taxes, then that's not fair for them. Well, bullshit, it isn't. We shouldn't even be using money in the first place. If we had a brain in our head, we wouldn't be using money in the first place, because there isn't such a thing as better conditions or better events when the care and keeping of bodies is not the issue. There's no such thing as that. And let's go through the farmer golfer again. Okay, he arrives and he says the rain is making me upset. And what stopped him right there? And I says, well, what about your problematic way of thinking about the rain? Your own mental contribution, your own defining mind context about the rain. Don't you think your own mental way of thinking about the physical material rain Don't you think that had something to do with your feelings and experiences? And if we really sat down and talked and talked and talked, I'm sure, and if he could, have what would happen is he would realize that it really is his mental contribution, because he changed his mind, he changed his interpretation about the rain and got a completely different experience because he had a completely different interpretation, even though the rain remained the rain. You see, so it wasn't that worse condition. That worse condition was not causing worse feelings. You need to understand that. I mean it. You need to understand that. The rain, which he thought of as worse conditions, did not cause him to have worse experiences, but his problematic way of thinking about the rain, his own problematic beliefs and interpretations about the rain, his own problematic defining mind context about the rain, was the cause. And because he got two different feelings and all within a few seconds' time, he would have to say, yeah, you're right about that. It was my problematic interpretation that caused my problematic feelings, and then it was my happy interpretation that caused my happy experience after that. Now, what I'm saying is that let's extend that. The American dream is an illusion for sure, because we think of the better conditions. If you have the American dream, then you have better conditions, and then you can have a better life. But you are never relating to the conditions. You're relating to your beliefs about them. You're relating to your own defining mind context about the conditions and events. And what that does is it robs us of our own personal truth and power. We're telling the kids that the world is affecting them, that what happens in the world affects them, not like next generations. We're convincing them, that better conditions will cause better lives, so blah, blah, blah. And I'm for education and college education and everything else, and all of the things like that, learning more and more about things and everything, but I'm sure as hell not for lies and illusions. And our whole base foundational thinking mode as in humanity is a lie. It's a prison that we live in, because it robs us of our own personal truth and power. You don't want to. So let's go to back to the situation with when I was talking about the little boy, but instead let's change it to a 12-year-old girl who was being sexual with a 40-year-old man, and it got found out. And let's say they were sexual 2 or 3 different times, and it got found out. And there was no forcing, and then there was no violence. It was just some sexual activities going on between them. Even if it was intercourse, it's sexual activities. By the way, the same things you and your wife or partner just delight in doing. Maybe when you're and nobody's home, you rip each other's clothes off and just grope each other and everything else, So what is so delightful for you is supposed to be such a disaster if you're under the age of 18. Now, what kind of logic is that? It's a big fat lie. It's, again, worse conditions are causing worse lives? No, they are not. It's worse interpretations that cause worse lives. So he goes, when there's a trial, families are broken up and all that. He goes to prison and she goes into therapy with a traditionally educated clinical psychologist, trying to help relieve her of her degree of mental and emotional problems, when neither of them know the cause of her feelings and experiences. Christ almighty, think about it. Neither of them know the cause of her feelings and experiences, and so, the best he can say is, well, maybe after a period of time, or the psychologist, he or she, this will kind of fade, and you can, we can keep talking, and you can think maybe you can overcome and maybe even forgive him a little bit for what he did to you. Bullshit. He didn't do anything to her. I mean, there was physical things happening with their body, but we live our life in our mind, not in the material world. We live it in the mental world. And thus the psychology and therapy of personal honesty and personal responsibility is to explain that whole thing to the 12-year-old girl, especially her, that she doesn't have to believe this bullshit, even though almost everybody in the world believes it, and even traditional clinical psychology. She doesn't have to believe that. She isn't victimized by what happened. She's victimized by all this highly problematic interpretations that are raining down on both of them in court and all that, because the public, the prosecutor, needs to prove that this guy, this 40-year-old man, has he's just been terrible to this 12-year-old girl, and she's such a victim. And she's been profoundly violated, and her innocence has been stolen, and this terrible situation has happened to her. And it's the prosecutor's job to do that. That's their job, is to prove what a terrible victim this precious poor little girl is. When you say, well, what if she was really relating to what happened? It's the same thing. Her mom and dad can't wait to get home and just grope each other and rip each other's clothes off, things that vibrate, lacy underwear, you name it. Oh my God. See, the psychology and therapy of personal honesty and personal responsibility at the bottom line says this: it doesn't, if it doesn't concern the harm of bodies, when the care and keeping of bodies is not the issue, then immediately after that, nothing, not anything, is able to matter at all, because the rest of it is all a matter of interpretation. And as I said, whatever can be interpreted non-problematically. And that's what the little boy did. The one that was nearly 2 years old, and his babysitter sucked his penis on 3 separate occasions. He just interpreted it non-problematically. And, he went right on with his life. The next day, the same day, and, his parents picked him up from being babysat, and no problem, the same old thing, with him and her, and not with her, because she felt guilty, I imagine, and but not with him. It didn't interfere one goddamn iota with her. Now, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that I think it's probably best, at least for now, to have those kinds of things against the law. We don't want that happening. We would rather, in fact, it's my personal belief that people ought to be, well age 18 or even older, and before that, if they have sexual urges, then they just masturbate. But to be always told the truth, and so to not get involved until you're 18, and then maybe you even, like a girl or even a guy, will save themselves. I think that's great if they want to, if that's something they want to do. But don't make a problem when there isn't a problem, when the problem isn't real. Even though, as I said, if our social mores say that certain kinds of sexual activities, we don't want them going on, then we can make it against the law. But we cannot come in and say that they're wrong, because that's where everything goes south. That's the key that turns all this bullshit into the bullshit that it really is right now, and that I'm trying to help people understand. And so I think I'll leave it at that. And so thanks a lot for listening to this, and I hope you listen to the others as well. But the next time you say or think, this makes me happy and that makes me upset, and you're going to say it and think it probably several times today and several times tomorrow. Every time you do that, and every time you think in terms of better conditions are causing better lives and worse conditions are causing worse lives, just realize that you're involved in a game of pretenses. And so at least tell yourself the truth, and then why don't you help other people so that we can have this kind of peace on earth? You see, what it means is it turns us into an accepting society. That doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. That problem, that can't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because it can't matter. And again, if something can't matter on its own, then it can't matter at all. Hello? If an event can't matter on its own, then it can't matter at all. And as I said, physical kinds of things, violence and forcing, matter. And they matter on their own. But not mental and emotional situations that we've thought of as highly problematic, like certain sexual situations. We're just still in the Stone Age with all of this bullshit. And so I've just told you how traditional clinical psychology is fundamentally flawed. And so for you to recap that, they go into therapy with their clients thinking in terms of the event or events were problematic, instead of the interpretations about them, the person's own interpretations about them as being problematic. And the psychology of personal honesty and personal responsibility is the truth itself. You're powerful. You can go through life and just interpret everything non-problematically. Even if you were a powerful person, and I know you're going to go crazy about this, but if somebody kind of walked up to like a nice-looking girl or something, and maybe he groped her on her breasts or something, what does she do now? Does she want to be a victim, or does she not want to be a victim? And I'm not saying that people should be doing that, but what I'm saying, and by the way, on the other hand, and if I could talk to you about the cause and effects of human behavior and human decision making, you'd find out that if we stop making things wrong, we would stop doing what we think of as wrong. You see, touching a person, a nice-looking woman, and touching her on the breasts, over her clothes, of course, that is not a problem, and she can't even make it a problem. But we may not want that in our society, and so we can make it against the law. It's just that we better stop telling people that it's wrong, because it's only what it is. What happened is what actually happened. What we're doing is we're adding our own defining mind context about things into the things themselves, mixing it all up like a big cement mixer or whatever, and then we put it over there and say that's what happened there, and what happened made me upset. The hell it did. You make you upset, or you make you happy, and it's never been anything different, and it can't be anything different than that. So thanks a lot for listening to this, and please listen to the others as well.